Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're tackling something absolutely profound and honestly incredibly misunderstood, the biological journey of trauma. Our whole goal here is to demystify the biological freeze response and totally reframe how we view trauma behaviors. We're stepping entirely away from judgment and even moving past standard psychology to dive straight into the raw, fascinating science of survival.
So, here's our roadmap for the Explainer. We're going to start by looking at why biology fundamentally overrides choice. Then, we'll map out the defense cascade, explore what happens in the deep freeze state, reframe certain behaviors as defensive accommodations, and wrap up with some incredibly practical strategies for providing safety and co-regulation.
All right, let's jump right into this first part, biology over choice. To really understand this, we have to start by completely debunking a super pervasive myth, and that's the idea that trauma victims always have a logical, conscious choice when they're in threatening situations. You hear it all the time, right? Why do they just stay? It's a heavy question, but unfortunately, it's almost always asked from a place of frustration or judgment rather than actual biological understanding. We just assume that if someone is in danger, logic kicks in and says, hey, you should leave. But as we're going to see, survival physiology, it really doesn't care about logic. A brilliant way to grasp this is through this quote from Nadine Burke-Harris. She points out that if you stumble across a literal bear in the woods, your body has this incredibly efficient system that just floods you with adrenaline and cortisol. That survival physiology effectively shuts off the thinking logical part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, so you can just run without overthinking it. And honestly, that's a brilliant system for a one-off bear attack. But as she says, the problem is when that bear comes home from the bar every night. Chronic daily exposure to a threat keeps that thinking brain permanently offline.
Think of survival physiology like a sled completely loaded down with heavy rocks, sliding down a snowy slope. The more intense the survival response, the heavier the rocks, and the faster it goes. Once that biology is triggered, it basically acts like a runaway train. It's moving entirely too fast, with entirely too much momentum, to be stopped by logic or careful deliberation. You quite literally cannot just think your way out of it.
So how does this actually unfold in the body? That brings us to the defense cascade. Since we know logical thought goes out the window, let's map exactly how our nervous system ramps up when faced with a threat. We react to danger in a very specific hardwired sequence. Step 1 is social engagement. We try to talk our way out of it, mediate the threat with friendly connection, or just appease the person. If that doesn't work, we escalate to step 2, which is the active threat response, your classic fight or flight. Now, if we can't fight our way out and we can't run away, our biology completely takes the wheel and drops us into step 3, a physiologically induced freeze. And notice this, at every single escalating step, we lose more and more access to conscious choice. It's fascinating because this is all wired into specific biological tracks. That first line of defense, the social engagement and appeasement, is run by the ventral vagus system. It's nuanced. It's built for human connection. But the second that fails, the sympathetic system flips on. This is high arousal. There is absolutely zero nuance here. It's built for one thing, kicking, screaming, and running for your life.
But what happens when neither of those works? We enter the deep freeze state.
When social engagement fails, and fight or flight isn't an option, your nervous system drops into its absolute final fallback position. This is critical to get. The freeze response isn't just someone checking out mentally. It is a physiologically induced state of actual physical immobilization and numbing, and it is controlled by the dorsal vagus nerve. I really want to emphasize this. Freeze is deep biology, not just a psychological quirk. You aren't choosing to freeze. Your dorsal vagus nerve is forcing you into it to preserve your life. I mean, just look at how extreme this is. Your heart rate tanks. Your breathing slows way, way down. Your body literally pumps out its own internal painkillers to numb you to physical and emotional pain. It induces immobility, which biologists often call death feigning, just to avoid triggering a predator's movement-based attacks. But make no mistake, this is an incredibly high-risk survival strategy. Think about the massive biological energy it takes to essentially slam on the gas and the brakes of your nervous system at the exact same time. Doing that chronically takes a devastating toll on the human body.
This brings us to a massive paradigm shift, viewing staying as a defensive accommodation.
When you look at how people adapt to chronic biological freezing, it creates distinct long-term behavioral patterns. Usually, we walk through life in that middle window of tolerance, where our nervous system is pretty balanced. But if you're exposed to chronic, unrelenting threats, you simply can't live in a constant, explosive state of hyperarousal. Your body would give out, so it adapts. It creates a faux window. This is a secondary equilibrium, essentially a subconscious hack to handle the totally unmanageable. Someone might look calm on the outside, but underneath, they're operating in a highly managed, exhausting state of dorsal freeze or sympathetic arousal.
This is the core of defensive accommodation. We're talking about subconscious, primitive strategies that the brain develops to substitute for actual, genuine regulation. They defend the person against just overwhelming terror and helplessness. So when people ask that judgmental question, why do they stay? We have to completely reframe it. Staying isn't some weak, conscious choice. Staying is a defensive accommodation. It's a necessary subconscious management strategy that biology utilizes to survive a threat it has decided is utterly inescapable.
Okay, so we've established the biology. The big question now is, how do we actually help?
Understanding the science is only half the battle. Because the trauma threat response entirely bypasses logic and the thinking brain, our solution also has to bypass logic. You can't reason someone out of a freeze state. The antidote is co-regulation. This means using the regulated, calm nervous system of someone close to them to quickly bring down their physiological arousal. It completely bypasses the need to think about calming down. You just help their body feel safe.
But honestly, this is where a lot of us get it wrong. Typical support usually involves demanding social engagement. We naturally say things like, hey, look at me, let's talk this out. But trauma-informed support realizes something highly counterintuitive. For someone stuck in a deep survival state, typical offers of connection, like intense eye contact, can actually feel terrifying. Remember, their social engagement system is offline, so demanding eye contact can instantly trigger that dorsal freeze, driving them even deeper into their biological shell.
So what should we do instead? Well, here are a few actionable science-backed strategies. First, just let them rest in good company. Offer a quiet, calm presence without demanding a deep conversation or firing off 20 questions. Don't force eye contact. Try to keep the physical environment as predictable as possible. And maybe the most critical rule of the whole thing, you have to self-regulate your own nervous system first. You can't be a safe harbor if your biology is flashing red with stress. If your heart is racing with anxiety or frustration, their primitive nervous system is going to read you as another threat. They will feel your dysregulation before you even open your mouth.
We've really covered a lot today, moving from the raw, intense biology of the defense cascade all the way to practical ways we can support the people we care about. This physiological freeze isn't a choice. It's a brilliant, if costly, biological lifesaver. So I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. Knowing what you now know about the raw biology of trauma and the incredible power of a regulated nervous system, how can you be a secure base for someone in your life today? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating science with me. Keep learning, keep being curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.